are doing. We now have some time for some questions or discussion points that you may want to make. Just come up to the mics. I don't know if we have any questions from the webcast at this point. No. Does anybody have a question? This is your government at work for you. This is your opportunity. Here's yes. Come on up.
So I'm curious. I presented a slide yesterday that showed the analysis of greenhouse gas emissions at 2012, 2017, and 2022 in the final rule. And I was wondering why the year 2022 was chosen as the sole year in which biofuels will be evaluated for their reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, whereas 90% of the total volume of biofuel produced as a result of RFS2 takes place in the years before that.
Well, that was a subject of much debate, and Al is certainly was part of that discussion. We, at the time, and I'm going to be a little fuzzy on the facts here, Mike, and I understood your presentation was very well done yesterday. I actually would like to talk to you. We wanted to look at and thought that the most appropriate, and there were different, we had a number of different scenarios that we were trying to kick around. We thought the most appropriate assessment was to look at the numbers in that year that Congress had decided, because it was a good unifying assessment for us to do it. It made sense to do it on an annual basis or to pick years in between, given that we have this, the way the law was structured out, thought that the pros outweighed the cons to pick the 2022 number.
Okay. Yes. Just speak close to the mic. It should be fine. Not turn on. The technical support is on its way.
Thank you. I'm Jamal Hashim from Malaysia. I saw in your presentation that you have palm oil example for the life cycle analysis. Mm-hmm. Has that been done, or is it still in the process? And if, for example, Malaysia as a producer of biodiesel would like to have that assessment done, how would we go about achieving that?
Palm oil, one of my favorite subjects. There is, just as a point of background, we put out what's known as a notice of data assessment last year, right around this time actually, for our preliminary assessment of what we thought palm oil would be, the life cycle assessment. The numbers that we put out, we did it for regular biodiesel and also renewable diesel. Both of those were below the 20% threshold. We put it out for public comment. We extended the comment period again for another 30 or 60 days. We have, I think, 60,000 comments and counting right now going through the process. We've been working closely with the Indonesian and Malaysian governments as well as stakeholders there to both understand the data, but also to see what else is out there, and we want to make sure we have the best information before us. There's nothing that anybody has to do now. It's well on our radar screen, and let me tell you, there's three issues I think that we're trying to sort through. One is, what's the appropriate number to use for the impact of palm oil production on peat soil, peat emissions? Yeah. Two would be methane capture. What's the appropriate number on that? And three, there's a significant amount of information and uncertainty on what the land use implications would be for providing that pathway for palm oil. And those are the three areas we've been working on.
So this is based on the Malaysian and Indonesian example? This life cycle analysis is based on the Malaysian and Indonesian biodiesel production example? There's
90% of the production comes from those two areas, so it's an appropriate way to model it in terms of when we do our life cycle assessment, it's we do it, so for corn we used the U.S. as the primary market. For sugarcane it was Brazil. For palm oil it happens to be that area, and then it applies worldwide once we get done.
Any other comment on that? Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Hi, Al McCartland from the Roundtable. It's actually a question for USDA. I'm going to try to tie your talk in yesterday. You had some great pictures about all the wood waste and stuff. I'm wondering, a couple questions here. Have you thought, or are you doing any work on burning biomass and coal-fired boilers to back out some of the coal? And what would be sort of the life cycle implications of that? And I'm not even sure, frankly, what that would do to emissions as well. So if you have information on that, I'd be curious. And then secondly, we heard some great talks about sort of the corn stalks and all the biomass that's left in the cornfield, and maybe half of that could be taken away. Does USDA fund any research on converting that to, say, cellulosic ethanol or other uses?
To get to your first question on using wood in co-firing situations, boilers, we do quite a bit of research with that. It's mainly done out of our U.S. Forest Service. But we also have a colleague that was at EPA, Donna Perla. And Donna has worked with me on a lot of that type of work. It's still, a lot of it is, you know, how big does the chip have to be? How do you pulverize the coal? How do you get it mixed in together? What are the emissions that are coming out the end? What type of scrubber technology can we use to lower those emissions? So there's a large field of research going on there. And then as far as the corn stover question, yes, corn stover is an acceptable feedstock that we're looking at. What we're trying to do in our major research arm of USDA is the Research, Education, and Economics mission area. That mission area is the one that does not support any more development of corn ethanol. The rest of USDA, we're not backing away from corn ethanol research, but that area is really looking at cellulosic biofuels. So we're looking at oil seeds like camelina, wood, corn stover, perennial grasses, and a little bit of algae. Algae is pretty much the dominant playing field for DOE.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, what I want to do is bring this session to a close and bring Frank Loy. Oh, is there something? Oh, yes. Oh, of course. Dr. Claudio.
Last question in terms of policy. In terms of the national energy policy, do you think, any of you, that the emphasis on biofuels as an alternative takes away from other alternatives like solar and wind? Do you think that's an issue has been raised in other settings? And I was wondering, in terms of as a national policy, what do you think about that?
I won't comment on the policy itself, but I will let you know that USDA Rural Development Mission Area still does support a lot of wind and solar as well as biomass. So it as a renewable energy, it's not out of our portfolio.
Can I follow up on that with you in terms of USDA's role in the rural communities with the wind and the solar? And are you able to bring health impacts into that picture for those communities?
We should.
Okay.
I don't know of any specific research program.
Yeah.
That's a mission area that we have another senior advisor, and he works with that,
Yeah.
Todd Campbell. But I'll be glad to touch base with Todd and see what we're doing over there.
Because it seems like there could be some very positive impacts. Yes, Carl.
I think I would tend to agree with Daniel. I don't think it takes away from our stuff. I think it's important, and he had noted something that I think is important for us to recognize too, is that we're spending most of our time on second generation and trying to, get at some of the cellulosic and the non-food related feedstocks as well too, because that's where a lot of the work is being done at our sister agencies as well, and it seems to make some sense.
Okay, are there any other questions? All right, so I will now bring the session to a close and thank our speakers so much for being here with us. And invite Frank Lloyd to come forward to summarize